Good morning out there in streaming land. I am Manila Chan. That over there is Ted Rall. You are tuned in to the Ted Manila Information Show, or just TMI for short, where we bring you too much information. And as the example yesterday about all the random stuff we cover, Ted, we were talking about, what were we talking about before? For way too long that we're not supposed to, not supposed to, Ted. Everything.
There is no not supposed to.
Yeah. But that's the kind of show this is.
There's a Sex Pistols album that contains a song where they start covering, I believe it's a Monkey song.
Cover it?
It's great. The Sex Pistols did some great covers. And at one point, someone says like, "Oh, are we allowed to do that?" And Johnny Rotten says, "We don't need permission to do anything." And the song was, "I'm not your stepping stone."
Well, there you go. That's this kind of show, including no pesky FCC telling FCC telling us what we can or cannot say, including F-bombs. So just a little bit of warning.
And same thing to you, FDA. We can eat whatever we want. Fuck off.
Well, yeah, we can. I do agree with that. We can eat whatever we want. Should we is a different question. But anyway, Ted and I are live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. So please be sure to like and follow the show. I think we just hit our 90 days, Ted. So we're still a pretty young show. But we need your help
if we were a fetus, we could still be legally aborted.
We could. As far as shows go, it can happen.
There are people who would like that.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So with that, today's main topic is going to be pretty interesting. We're going to talk about the goals of the Trump administration in the first 100 days, because we know, Ted, this is like a do or die time for any administration. Mm-hmm. This is where they outline what they plan on doing. They show us what's important to them. Mm-hmm. And right now, I think we're seeing what that is like no immigrants, no woke, no DEI stuff. And I guess everything else, let the cards fall where they may. Because so far, I know we're only in 1 week, Ted, first week. But, I think the Ukraine war is still going on. Isn't that weird? Wait a minute. Producer Robbie just popped himself back in.
Hi there. How y'all doing? That was a surprise.
Good thing you're wearing clothes.
It is. Well, I know what it is because you said immigrants. And so that just summons me.
Oh, my God.
That's exactly what it is.
Whenever I say the word immigrants, it's like Beetlejuice. Robbie shows up. So.
That's what happens. Deport them all.
And there are none in Montana. What are you beefing?
Well, there are the summertime.
Yeah, and then they go away like vegetation.
Well, good. Then they can
are
stay
you talking about the Californians that you're always complaining about?
Well, them too, but no, I'm talking about
blocking up your highways. I'm sure.
Here I am.
Road rage.
Well, in all honesty, here we have a lot of tourists that come in because I'm just outside of Glacier National Park, beautiful place. Sure. But so basically, a lot of times what'll happen is that buses will just appear here magically in the middle of the night and then just dump off like busloads of migrants who don't speak English. Well, the town that I live in the summertime, our population is 10,000. In the wintertime, it's closer to 2 because all the snowbirds. And we just can't. There's no place for them to go. And that's what, like last winter, a bunch of them froze to death and died.
I was going to say, are you sure they didn't just freeze to death somewhere?
Wolves got to eat,
Hey, they found like 30 bodies last winter of migrants that froze to death out in the woods.
Oof, terrible.
Montana will kill you. Montana will kill the hell out of you.
That's why nobody lives there.
Hey, I live here. I'm somebody. Screw you, Ted.
Not many people.
All right,
you dress for it.
I'm gonna kick producer Robbie out of here because we got to move on before our guest. I can't say the word immigrant because you guys already know.
Migrant,
you watch this show, right? Anything about non-American citizens, it's like boom. There's producer Robbie. Goodbye, Robbie.
Goodbye.
Bye, Beetlejuice.
Seriously, it's like Beetlejuice. He's like, wait, who said you're talking about immigrants? He's like not paying attention to the show. But as soon as the word immigrant or migrant or non-American citizen, it's boom.
And be careful. He could be like on the toilet or something when you do that. So
that's true. All right. So as you can see, anything goes here. We are going to be talking about the Trump priorities, and we're going to bring in a guest that has had experience working on the Hill in Senate offices and domestic, or not domestically, but I mean more locally here for me at least, in Virginia. So a lot of people may or may not know, but Virginia is going to be holding its next gubernatorial election this fall. And it's going to be a very contested race between both parties, although I think I have an idea of who the Democrats are going to put up. And I don't know about the Republicans here in Virginia, but I will say that the Lieutenant Governor, Winsome Sears, she is the first legal immigrant, producer Robbie, legal immigrant from Jamaica and former Marine. I think she might have been an officer. I don't remember, but anyway, she's definitely running. And so hopefully this guy can give us some inside baseball about what's happening down in Richmond, because that's where he is. So we'll be joined with him a little bit later in the show. So with that, we're gonna hop to some headline news, Ed. Here we go.
Okay, let's do it. Kind of lethargic, Jaws. All right, here we go. The remaining classified files related to the 1963 assassination of JFK will be made public pursuant to an executive order issued by Trump yesterday. Government documents about the 1968 assassinations of RFK and MLK, all the acronymical assassin victims, will also be reviewed for eventual release. Now, I don't understand what's taking so long, because Congress actually ruled back in 1992 that all the JFK documents were supposed to be declassified as of nearly 10 years ago in 2017. That deadline was missed like a drunken college student on a final night, and files, many with numerous redactions, have been released in batches over the past 7 years. Officials have said that 97% of more than 5 million documents related to JFK's assassination have already been made available to date. If that's true, and bear in mind this is the federal government talking, so there's no telling whether that's true or not. I don't know how much more there really is to see here or to learn. The assassination, of course, has spurred numerous conspiracy theories over the decades, in part because of the motives of Lee Harvey Oswald were never completely determined, not to mention the fact that he was whacked a couple of days after he was arrested, not to mention that the guy who whacked him died shortly thereafter too, not to mention that the story about how this all went down never really seemed to make a lot of sense. Anyway, RFK Jr., who's of course Trump's nominee for Secretary of Health and Human Services, thinks that the CIA might have had something to do with killing both his uncle, John F. Kennedy, the president, and Robert F. Kennedy, the 1968 Democratic candidate for the presidency and also a senator from New York at the time of his death. Parenthetically, he was killed in the Ambassador Hotel in L.A. And when I had my job at KFI in L.A., one drunken night, my producers and I were out carousing, and someone mentioned that anyone could just walk in at any time into the disused JFK into the Ambassador Hotel and just look around. So we drove over there, and the lights were on.
Yeah, it's been abandoned. Yeah.
It was abandoned, but it was in perfect condition. It wasn't trashed. There were no homeless hobos hanging out.
That was then.
There was no garbage. Yeah, that was then. But it was like it was frozen in time, and it had this very 1970 kind of decor and vibe. It's a nice look, actually. It's a nice design aesthetic.
I dig that.
It's a good period, yeah. Sort of postmodernist, and it looked great. And anyway, the point is, it was just and I was like, wow, it's all there except for the bloodstain in the carpet. I mean, it was just, you could go walk to the spot where it happened and just
weird,
kind of take it in. Anyway, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think, Manila, they're going to learn anything new from these files? I think not, because so much has already been released. And also, if there really is something in there about, Smoking Man from X-Files or something, some grassy knoll, mofo, they're not going to release that, right? I mean,
no.
Or they don't have it.
So Trump said, in the whatever language that he released, or whoever it is that wrote it, that was released to the press yesterday about this executive order to release those files on those men right there. They said they quoted a number of pages. So I think it was like an additional 30,000, whatever pages. I don't know if that meant for each man, for the group entirely. I didn't dig too far into it. And here's why. Is because while Trump is keeping his word to say that he was going to release this stuff.
Which I like.
Which I agree.
I would love
Wonderful.
to, as a
however,
person who usually has voted Democratic, it would be great to vote for a party where the person actually keeps their promises. Must be great.
Whatever they were stumping on. But here's the thing. There was no mention of how redacted this tranche was going to be. So for all we know, we're going to get 30,000 pages of and maybe 5 or 10 words that we can see in total.
Right.
In total, the pages have been released.
Really good point, Manila. Really,
he's kept his promise. He's released the tranche of thousands and thousands of documents, but collectively you can count all the words in total between the three men, and lo and behold, it's like 100 words.
Yeah, it's literally like the
redacted Kennedy,
Dallas.
Martin Luther King, redacted.
Yeah, no, that is what it's like.
So, I don't have a lot of faith.
He could have ordered that not to be the case.
Maybe
he has.
I don't know.
Remember,
I guess
we've had that whole discussion about from the classified documents controversy at Mar-a-Lago about the president's powers to classify and declassify, and the president absolutely.
But what about redact and unredact?
The president definitely has the ability to issue completely unredacted documents. I mean, even if they included, top secret information, national security stuff. I mean, I don't know if they could burn a source or something like that, but they might even be able to do that.
I think there's time limits.
Pardon?
There's time limits, right? I mean, I think 75 years or something.
Well, okay, yeah, I don't know about that, but it's
something like that.
I mean, this is from 1963. I mean, it's like the year I was born. I'm 61 years old.
Similar to what we were talking about, how Popeye's patent is over, right? I think there's a time frame also for his copyright. Sorry, yes, his copyright. I've never had anything copyrighted, so it's not in my vernacular. Unlike you, Ted.
That's kind of weird. You've never done a book or something like that. Did you ever?
No, I don't. I don't have the. Maybe I don't know. I don't have the patience. I think I'm too short form, but we'll see. That's very long form. But yeah, I think
you do what Thomas Friedman does. All he does is just compile his columns into a book and strings them together.
Well, that doesn't seem fun.
And he lives in a mansion, so it must work.
Oh, geez, I got to look into that business model. That's sneaky. But for this, I think there is an official time limit. I don't know what it is, but everything expires because it's like the general thinking was after any major event where the files are sealed, like the JFK assassination. So I think I thought I read somewhere that it was 75 years because it's easily presumed that at that point everybody that's involved is dead, right?
Right.
So, which is fair,
or at least as old as Joe Biden.
Well, yeah. Well, when you drink the blood of children, I'm kidding. But this was ruled a long time ago that all of this shit was supposed to be declassified in the 90s, right? Mm-hmm. It should have been in the 90s. They kicked it. They punted a little bit. This is under Clinton.
I don't like
it. So
they punted it.
Yeah, and they've punted and punted and punted. So I don't know what's coming out today. The tranche, who's going to see what?
Well, it won't be today because I mean, this stuff.
You don't think they're going to trickle out a couple?
This stuff is mostly in the National Archives, and it's going to take.
So
I was a history major, and I did my senior thesis involving something.
This is after you dumped the STEM stuff, yeah.
Yep. And that's correct. And I didn't dump it. It dumped me.
Oh,
but that was correct.
That's right.
I was expelled, and I own that. But and frankly, it's good for everybody that happened. But anyway, it was very interesting. I studied I researched my senior thesis at the National Archives in Washington, as well as at the FDR Library in Hyde Park in upstate New York. So what happens is you sit down with an archivist and you sort of say like, okay, so for example, let's say you're a researcher on the assassination. You sit down, you say, okay, I'm here for the assassin. What do you have on the assassination? And they'll say, well, they interview you like, well, Manila, what would you like to know specifically? And you're like, well, I'm really interested in Jack Ruby and the arrest records, and I want to know.
Isn't his real name like Rubenstein?
Yes, and like what was his background? What was his motivation? What did the Dallas police know about him? So then they're like, oh, okay, all right. So then they disappear, and then you wait like for a while, like an hour or two in this like research room, and then they roll in sometimes a pallet full of bankers boxes.
Jesus.
And they're like, okay, so here's all of the documentation from the Dallas Police Department. Here are all the police records. Here's what the Department of Justice came up with. Here's the president's files. And then they're like, and they basically it's like thump. And then
but the Library of Congress librarian tells you this stuff. Like here's
it's
all
actually
this.
kind of awesome. And then they tell you, but then if like you want something, like a Xerox of it for your research. This is the weird part. You put a yellow sticky on anything that you want copied, then it disappears and goes down the hall to a CIA agent who you don't get to see. The CIA agent looks at it and says, should she get a copy of this or not? If not, he classifies it at that moment. It's sort of like all these documents are kind of like, like the last scene of Indiana Jones, right? They're all in a place like that, right? In the big warehouse.
Right.
So when you hear, it's the percentage of stuff is classified or declassified, it's neither. It's only when someone asks to see it that they'd make that determination, because otherwise it would take too much time. So the guy looks at it, and then
so it's in document purgatory for all the Catholics,
exactly,
right? So
very well said. And then it comes back. And but let's just say, so then all the documents that they approved to declassify come back to you, and you can make a Xerox of them. All the other ones vanish into the ether, never to be seen again, and no one could ever see them again. So it's a game, and you kind of like learn to ask for more things than you really need, because and also you don't know. Like in my case, I was researching American plans to occupy France as an enemy power at the end of World War II. Well, how much about Vichy French policy does my CIA agent know, right? So it's sort of like that kind of thing. And so it was kind of amazing. And so they're going to have to go through a process like this. The volume is just really hard. It's massive.
Right.
So, by the way, while I was there, the Oliver Stone's team was there. They
doing the first JFK
movie, and
because
they brought
did a follow-up.
While I was there, it was the most amazing. They brought out the JFK main evidence box, and
that's cool.
And
I've heard
Oliver
Oliver talk about that.
I saw the bullet in the little bag.
Yes, Oliver has talked about that,
and also,
and he's done a revisit.
We all gathered around, like half the people there are like Civil War buffs, but everybody just gets up to look over, and then there was JFK's shirt that he was wearing.
Could you see past Oliver's eyebrows?
Oliver wasn't there. It was his research team.
Okay.
And I remember he wore the same size Brooks Brothers pinstripe shirt that I wore at the time, which was a 16 by 34. It was a gray pinstripe. The very light blood stains were still on the shirt. And his wallet and Massachusetts driver's license were in there, as well as
crazy. And
also some of the keys to the living quarters of the White House, basically his bedroom keys and stuff, and they're all in there. It's like the cash that he was carrying at the time, which was not very much. I mean, I think he had like $12 or something in his pocket, which granted, it was 1963. It was a lot of money at the time, but anyway, the point is that so it's like this is not going to be like you don't snap your fingers and be like, okay, it's all out.
I don't know, Ted. This is Trump we're talking about, and if he is like, fuck it, just dump everything, that could happen too. I would
prefer that.
I wouldn't put it past him. Right. I would too. I'm not even like a, like a Kennedy mystery buff for either of these men or MLK. I have my suspicions about all of this
I
stuff,
think the
but
MLK thing is far more straightforward than the JFK thing.
I think so. I think so. But the Kennedy family stuff, and look at Bobby. Bobby 1. Bobby 1 looks just like Bobby 2 looks just like Bobby 1.
That's true.
But I mean, spitting image of his dad, right? So
Right.
I don't know what RFK Jr. is saying about all of this stuff. He hasn't, done any
No,
mainstream press about this.
RFK Jr.
No, I know, but he hasn't responded since this happened yesterday. He hasn't done like major media, but he does look just like his dad.
Well, did you hear Trump's remark after he signed it? He said, "Give the pen to RFK Jr."
Oh, well, that's kind of sweet.
So obviously, I'm sure RFK Jr. is very happy about this.
I hope so. I hope they find out more. Because can you imagine being the Kennedy clan, especially being the son of Bobby Sr. and like not really knowing every detail of how your father was taken away from you when you were a teenage boy.
Yeah, not to mention it was look, there's no way to exaggerate the national trauma. I mean, here's this thing that happened over half a century ago, and we're still talking about it. There's movies about it, TV shows that are centered around it.
This stuff doesn't make sense.
It was like,
that's why.
It seemed like anytime anybody showed a little bit of charisma and decency that leaned a little bit left, it was like someone had to shoot them.
We can't have leadership like that in the White House, Ted. Get it through your head. You can't be young and charismatic and good looking and smart and be apparently honest and fair and call out the deep state and be in the White House, Ted.
No,
you know this.
Not permitted. Not that JFK was a perfect president by any means.
No.
Anyway, let's keep moving on. We've got a guest coming on. Yeah. All right. As Trump rolls out his plans for the largest deportation operation in history, Mexico, with 4 million unauthorized citizens living in the U.S., is preparing to welcome back thousands of deportees. Mexico plans to send anyone from elsewhere back to their home countries because a lot of people transited through Mexico from places like Central America and South America. The initiative, called Mexico Embraces You, aims to build 9 migrant reception centers with awesome tequila bars along the U.S. border. And maybe I made that part up about the tequila bars, and employ all 34 federal agencies and 16 state governments to repatriate and settle their returnees. The program is intended to enroll people in their pensions, paid apprenticeships, and other social welfare initiatives, and to distribute cash cards worth about $100 each. It'll also bus people back to their hometowns. Critics say that Mexico isn't well equipped to handle this huge influx of former migrants and accuse it of benefiting from migrant remittances, which boost foreign exchange, domestic incomes, and economic growth, while not having any kind of system to support repatriation. Critics wonder what migrants will do once they return, since many of them left due to violence or the fact that they couldn't find jobs. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has expressed disagreement with Trump's unilateral mass deportation decision, but with the U.S. planning to implement 25% tariffs to force Mexico to crack down on the border and the flood of migrants on their way back anyway, she has really obviously no choice but to prepare her country to receive them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to add to that other than she really has no choice, Ted. I mean,
they are her nationals. Yeah.
Yeah, at least, I mean, these are the like, I know broadly a lot of the people in Robbie's world that, want to deport everybody, all these brown people, writ large, that they generally call them Mexicans. They're not all Mexicans, but in this case, we are talking about Mexicans in particular. That's what they're referring to here. She will take back her own nationals, her own people. And I don't know necessarily that that's anything that she couldn't handle, because Mexico's economy is actually doing really well. AMLO, who was a socialist president, as is she, have done really well by their people, and have expanded a lot of business in their countries. A lot of manufacturing has come to Mexico. So I think they could use the labor force, especially if these are the people that are being deported from the United States, coming back in, repatriating back in with some kind of manufacturing or other labor experience, Ted. So I think it could ultimately be a boon for Sheinbaum.
Yeah, no question about that. She's off to a good start. Pete Hegseth, Trump's pick for defense secretary, has cleared a key procedural hurdle towards confirmation, which frankly is gobsmacking. Senate Republicans secured a narrow majority vote of 51-49 to advance the nomination towards final confirmation expected tonight. Democrats have fiercely opposed Hegseth, a former weekend Fox News host whose nomination has been clouded by allegations of sexual assault, financial misconduct, excessive drinking. Well, don't also forget the verbal abuse of his wife, allegations that he denies. Yes, they're pretty
she
credible.
Denies too.
They're very
no.
She denied physical
That's his sister-in-law.
abuse. She denied physical abuse. She did not die. She was very specific and said, there was no physical abuse in my marriage.
Right.
She has not denied verbal abuse.
Yeah, but how do you define verbal abuse? How do you define?
I don't know. People yelling, calling you names.
People yell all the time.
They're not supposed to.
We yell on this show. We never
yell on this show.
What?
Stop yelling at me.
We not yelling, but yelling doesn't necessarily mean it's aggressive. And I think that's how people. How do you define? Ted,
it's like porn. You know it when you see it.
We're living in a world.
She needed a safe word. Okay.
No, we're living in a world where the Democrats or I don't like calling them liberals because they're not really liberals, but the people in the Democratic Party have redefined words or violence. Okay,
Are you kidding me, Manila? Really, you don't know what verbal and emotional abuse is or are? I should say.
I don't know, but again, I have been through courts. The court system here, the family courts, and I have witnessed people lying. That I know for a fact they're lying. And how they define
these are credible. These are highly credible. Accusations
I'm skeptical.
Here.
I'm not a trust all women, believe all women.
Nor am I. And I'm not either.
Not.
I'm not.
So I don't know, but Pete Hegseth,
it's pretty clear that he was a big, massive, loud. Drunken douche.
Maybe, possibly. I'm just benefit of the doubt. The only thing I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt of is he kind of a lightweight? Sure.
Well, and honestly,
so.
I got to say, actually, if he's a shitty husband, a shitty father, and all that, that's kind of. I have to admit, I don't care. I just don't think he can do this job.
Right. I just think my complaint.
He's too young and he's not. Yeah, he's a lightweight. That's exactly it. He doesn't have the experience. Right. Period.
Gravitas, experience,
all that stuff. Anyway, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, Republican, the sort of lady senators, voted against Hegseth in the procedural vote. Murkowski wrote before the vote on X that she could not in good conscience support Hegseth's confirmation because of significant concerns about his views and past behaviors. Mitch McConnell, who did not meet with Hegseth during the nomination process, has not said how he's going to vote, but he did vote to proceed. The actual vote will be later tonight. Obviously, they're burying this vote in the Friday night media dump because it's not exactly a vote that anyone's going to be proud of because, he's a white nationalist. He's a bad person. He is a bad person. Oh, you're on mute there.
I said so they can, all the senators could do the walk of shame tomorrow morning and it's fine. Like no one's
exactly. They can go back in they can go home in their party dresses. All right, here we go. Tens of thousands of babies are born every year with mysterious diseases caused by genetic mutations, so rare that no one has ever tried to find a treatment. Now, researchers have found a way to use tiny blobs of tissue grown from the patient's blood cells to speed up the lab work needed to test personalized drugs for some of these people. The study published this week in Nature suggests that lab-grown organoids can help predict the treatment effects of genetic drugs made from RNA. Testing customized RNA drugs using tissues created from a patient's own cells hasn't really been done. That, according to developmental biologist Madeline Lancaster of the Medical Research Council Lab of Molecular Biology, who is not involved in the work. This is a very impressive and important study, she says, that could cut the high costs and speed the pace of personalized medicine. Study's leader, molecular biologist Scott Younger of the Children's Mercy Research Institute, was inspired by the story of Mila, a girl with a rare brain disorder called Batten disease, who temporarily improved after researchers quickly developed a drug tailored to her unusual disease mutation. The drug was an antisense oligonucleotide. Hey, I did that. A strand of RNA that can fix a mutation by bridging a flaw in the gene's messenger RNA, the blueprint for building a protein. Younger wanted to develop tailored ASOs for patients enrolled in an initiative at his institute that wants to sequence the genomes of 30,000 kids with rare genetic conditions over the next 7 years to try to identify their mutations. Researchers often develop tailored ASO drugs by testing them on the patient's cultured skin cells. Younger instead wanted to convert blood cells into induced pluripotent stem cells, immature cells that can be turned into the specific cell types involved in a person's disease, like brain or muscle. His lab would expose these cells to candidate drugs, in other words, drugs that might work, then predict how effective they might be in that tissue based on changes in the cell's gene expression or other changes. But paying a commercial lab to generate iPS cells from a patient's cells costs thousands of dollars and can take up to a year, Younger found out. So trying to look for a better way, his lab first tinkered with a cocktail of chemicals often used to convert blood cells to iPS cells. The researchers came up with a different formula that shortened the conversion process from months to just weeks. Then they used more chemicals to turn these cells into blobs of muscle, heart, or brain tissue, which could be tested for changes in function that could indicate whether a treatment might work when actually used on the actual person. Younger's lab has now created iPS cells for more than 300 patients. Beyond studying tailor-made ASOs, the team is also testing the ability of approved anti-seizure drugs to calm neuronal activity in brain organoids made from the cells of patients with epilepsy. The results even led to a decision to administer a specific drug to one patient, which reduced the child's seizures. Younger says, with this new organoid platform, our doctors will soon be able to order a test through us. We crank it through and give them a result to guide treatment. But the organoids might not always work for drug testing. That, according to Francesco Saverio Tedesco, a clinician scientist studying rare muscle diseases at University College London and the Francis Crick Institute. In some cases, they might fail to mimic a patient's disease because the culprit gene isn't expressed until after the organ matures, for example. Even so, he says the paper will be a stimulus and inspiration for many researchers to do more and more work using humanized 3D culture systems for therapy development in rare diseases. That is fucking awesome. It's so cool.
No idea what half of the stuff you just read was, but I have no comment other than that is really freaking cool that we are advancing medicine to literally tailor it to individuals. So that's amazing.
Well, and if you think about it, that's analogous to mRNA, right? Which is mRNA is sort of like a RNA. mRNA vaccines like that have been around for like 20 years, but weren't really used until the pandemic. They kind of like basically hijack your own gene system, and there's controversy over whether or not that's a good thing or not. But the point is that.
One more story
cool
to get to.
Personally. Oh, here we go.
One more story to get to. Our guest is there. I see him ready and waiting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for hanging tight. We'll be right with you. Nominations for the 97th Academy Awards have been announced yesterday. They are led by
whoever these people are.
Jacques Audiard's Emilia Perez, which I have to admit I've never heard of, with a record-breaking 13 nominations for a non-English language film, the Spanish language musical. Oh, I'm out. About not the Spanish part is not the issue here, about a transgender drug lord in Mexico, received nods for Best Picture, Best Director and Acting categories, The Brutalist, which I do still want to see, and Wicked, which I hope to never see, followed with 10 nominations each, and A Complete Unknown and Conclave with 8 nominations each. Conclave was, okay, it's all right. Carla Sofia Gascon makes history as the first openly trans actress nominated in an acting category for her role in Emilia Perez. Adrian Brody received a nomination for Best Actor for his portrayal of a Holocaust survivor. Does he ever get to be anything other than a Holocaust survivor?
Didn't he get his first Oscar for pretty much the same role? It's like a reprisal of the...
It's like, we have a Holocaust movie. All right, get
Adrian Brody.
Get Brody.
Just get Brody. He's
Whoever,
like the Holocaust.
He's like sitting around waiting to brood. He emigrates to America post World War II in Brady Corbett's epic The Brutalist, which, look, it's Adrian Brody, so it's going to be good. Sure. The nominations were announced after being delayed twice due to the wildfires that affected Southern California. The ceremony is scheduled, I'm just going to say it that way because that's how the English say it, for March 2nd, and will be hosted by Conan O'Brien. Okay. I don't know how he's going to do. I guess he'll be all right, right?
I don't. Yeah, sure. Why not? He's a pro. And again, Ted, I've not seen any of these movies. I don't plan to, especially the musicals. I don't. It's not.
I hate musicals.
And I don't really know. I'm not into the Hollywood scene. I'm into nerd Hollywood. That's why I moved to DC.
What does that mean, nerd Hollywood?
You don't know? That's what we call Washington, D.C. It's Hollywood for nerds.
I have no idea what that means.
You've never heard that? That's
no. What does that mean? What does it explain?
It's conversely, it's the meaner term is ugly Hollywood.
Well, I mean, it is true that it's the land where Laura Ashley never died, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
People really dress like shit.
Talbots.
Like people who are listening on the audio only can't see us.
It's not Gucci. It's not Gucci. It's not Hermes.
Me and my Henley.
Talbots.
You and your fleece. We're like high fashion in DC. People are like, woo!
It's Brooks Brothers.
Fancy.
It's Brooks Brothers and Talbots, and that's what it is here in Washington D.C. I know because
no one's even doing H&M. That would be too much.
No. So anyway, we'll leave that there. That's all for the headlines. So every now and again, Ted, we have to talk about the stuff that people do, like the normies talk about, which is like movies and stuff and Hollywood. And I don't know, other than Brangelina finally finished their divorce and she got snubbed apparently. So there's that.
Well, Angelina?
Yeah.
Well, she's terrible. I mean, I don't understand. That woman as a director has no talent at all. I mean,
don't know.
At all. I mean, like if you see her, like she directed the film, just don't see it. I mean, it's like there's certain people like that. Like, I'm sorry, it's just true. What was this guy? What was the guy who did The Postman, Dances with Wolves? Idea. Yeah, you do.
Kevin Costner?
Yeah, it's like that. Like Kevin Costner is involved. It's like a must not see. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Great actor. I like
him as a person. Seems cool. I guess he's good in that TV show, right? That he's in.
Oh, Yellowstone. Yeah.
Yeah. But I haven't seen that. I would watch that. I would consider watching that. But on the big screen, no. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not doing a lot. All right. Let's switch gears into our main topic. That wasn't the pause.
That is something to consider. I kind of like that. I love that music. Anyway.
Good music.
All right. Okay. You're like, Ted, you're supposed to be talking, and you would be right. Ever since FDR, we have watched the new president's first 100 days. Never will Donald Trump have as much political capital as he does right now, so he's jamming through as many executive orders as he can. Will he also be able to get his entire slate of top nominees through the Senate? What about his foreign policy? And, we haven't really heard much about legislation or bills. What should we expect there? Joining us, we are happy to have John Reid. He's a Richmond, Virginia-based talk show host and the former communications director for Senator George Allen, editorial communications chief at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Later, he served as the chief of communications for Iraq, Afghanistan Veterans of America, where he advocated for veterans' mental health funding. And right now, he's a critically acclaimed talk show host at News Radio WRVA in Richmond, Virginia. John Reid, thank you very much for joining us here on the TMI Show.
I'm glad to do it. I've enjoyed listening to the last segment. We could go back to Hollywood for ugly people. I was always really offended when I lived in D.C. Like, I'm not a supermodel, but it's not that bad.
Right.
And if you went to the inauguration this weekend, it was not ugly people. I mean, it was real. I mean, I was looking around like guys and girls. These people won the lottery of life.
Well, yes. Well, Lauren Sanchez, I would argue, stole the show.
It was great. I was there. I'm still kind of recovering from the weekend because it was sub-freezing temperatures, and
yes,
everything took twice as long to get through as I expected. And standing for 2.5 hours in 14-degree weather to get to the fancy inaugural ball that by the time everybody got in, they looked like the stepsisters in Cinderella.
Do people who live there have like heavy enough coats? Like I bet a lot of them don't.
Well, DC gets rough. I mean, not as rough as Chicago and everything, but it gets rough in January, February, and March sometimes. Yeah. But the weird thing was the people who thought, I have a VIP pass, and they thought that they would just waltz past everybody else, were stuck out there for 2.5 hours.
Security.
I had on a nice overcoat and a nice scarf.
It's always easier for you men. Let me just be
the women.
Be fair.
God, yeah. High heels, open-toed shoes with a little shawl, and 2 hours later,
they can't wear a hat, otherwise everything gets all.
It was rough. It was rough, but we're glad, or at least I am glad that Trump is there. I think he's knocking it out of the park. I don't really love executive orders. I would prefer that we get back to the old way where we actually discuss issues and we come up with compromise and solutions. But we're so far apart in the two political parties, and I don't want to be hyper partisan here, but I do think the Democrats set a new standard with executive orders where they're just going to push things through and hope that the bureaucracy will lock stuff in, that Trump's got no option except to come in and break every China plate in the China store and get us.
Well, John, I was going to say that. I was going to say you sound so conventional 20th century, like you don't want the mudslinging and you want people to actually talk to each other. This is the 21st century. You legislate by executive order, as we saw with Joe Biden coming in, setting the precedent for that.
Well, it was Obama who really accelerated that process.
I don't know if he did the most, but I will say that Trump is also legislating by tweet. I think that's the first.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I take John's point though, and I wonder what you would think about this. I mean, I think the problem with executive orders is that when you don't have a debate, then there's no buy-in, right? I mean, like if you have a robust discussion and then you come to some kind of conclusion and something passes, and then the public, even the people who are on the losing side of the argument, they're like, okay, well, this is where we are. And when you have an executive order, you don't go through that process. So then what you end up with is, for example, Joe Biden taking Cuba off the terrorist watch list. Trump puts them back on. The next Democrat will take them off again. It's just it's ping pong. Nothing's ever resolved.
The thing that Trump's done twice now is he got elected by actually being honest about the immigration position. He, for all the things that people don't like about him, where he stands on that big issue. And I think that's how he got the Republican nomination in 2016. I think that's how he got elected in November of that year. And then Democrats stymied him. And after what we've seen with the Biden policies, I think that was the linchpin for his victory this time. So for him to come in and really push through a recalibration of our policies on that is important. And when I worked in the Senate, which is truly, it's 20 years ago. I was there 2004, 2006, 2007. I remember sitting in those rooms and with senators and other senior staffers thinking, okay, we're never going to agree on how many H-1B visas, and we're just never going to agree. What can we carve out of immigration reform and find an agreement on? And my senator, George Allen, said, can we just seal the border and have a functional operational system by which people come and go? And they wouldn't even agree on that. I mean, it was unbelievable. That was 20 years ago. Imagine all the damage that's been done in the 20 years. So as much as I hate the executive order thing, something's got to lock this off so that we can get to a place where we make smart decisions about the second and third tier issues related to immigration and get the economy readjusted. Because right now you've got kind of a two-tier situation with people like me who are working, paying a fortune in taxes, up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I'm not in a chicken factory plucking feathers or anything, but every time the alarm goes off at 3:45, I'm upset about it.
Sure.
And you have other people who are kind of being treated, and I use this word advisedly, almost like indentured servants because they've got nowhere to go if somebody mistreats them. That's not right. So we've got to get this thing fixed.
So, John, let me throw this out at you because you've been. It seems I don't want to use the word entrenched. That's not right. But you've worked around politicians here in D.C., locally in Richmond, for it seems like your whole adult life. So you have a good sense of the party, right? The GOP. Are their goals as a party, are they in line with Trump's MAGA vision, or is there a split? Because I feel like when Vivek Ramaswamy did his, Twitter screed about H-1B visas and cultural differences, that suddenly there was this big fraction that was now noticeable within the GOP. So is the party in alignment with Trump's vision, or has the party become the party of Trump?
Yeah. I think I've got two answers to that. If these jerks would actually do what they say they're going to do when they run, then there would be total alignment. I think, I'm glad George W. Bush was president, but let's be honest, when he got in there, into office twice, there were a lot of missed opportunities to actually accomplish what he wanted. Then you fast forward to the Trump era, and what was one of the number one things for 10 years, Republicans said, we're going to get rid of Obamacare. We're going to fix this situation. We're going to, let the free market adjust here without the bastardization of the system that comes from federal money. And then when push came to shove, they didn't do it. And it's kind of humiliating to those of us who are, not elected officials, who are just constantly supporting the Republican Party, that when they get power and presumably have some sort of mandate, at least from the people who want them to be there, they drop the ball and make up all these excuses. So I do think that if Trump and team follow through as they have so far in week one, not even, the first 5 days, that he's going to be in a good position and he will continue to maintain a lot of support. I mean, the second issue is that once you start dealing with the reality of how to execute on this stuff, you're going to have people peel away who are distressed about one issue or another. I mean, the H-1B visas, like I was saying, 20 years ago, that was a point of contention. And it didn't surprise me when that continued to be a point of contention. I don't know how that plays out. I personally think that we're probably going to need to siphon off the number of people who come into the country from outside, have our economy adjust again with real prices based on the actual workforce of America, and stop creating this kind of weird alternative economy that's out there. But that may be a hard sell too, because that's.
But won't those probably two questions? I mean,
yeah.
When you say the real prices, I mean, I read that, and by the way, I agree with you, but I read that as inflationary, right? It'll be higher prices because if we have to pay Americans to do this work, and we have fewer workers, we're going to have a labor shortage, and Americans can and should get more than migrants do. And then the other question,
maybe
but inflation,
I don't know
inflation
how
helps bring down Biden, right? I mean, Trump's got to be afraid of inflation, and then. Yeah. He's got to be. And then the other thing is, what about the fact that our fertility crisis in this country, right? The fertility rate is between 1.67 and 1.7. You need about 2.1 just to keep population even. We should be more than that if we want to have a GDP that keeps going up. Short of miracles like a new internet or something, we don't have enough people here in the United States to do all the work. It's not. I never bought the whole idea like you can't get Americans to do these like manual jobs. I never believed that. You just have to pay them. But but we don't have actual. If the population shrinks, we risk going down the path of Japan in the 90s and the 2000s.
Yeah. Culturally and politically, we've incentivized everything that heads towards our demise. I mean, really, we've created I'm 54, so I don't know where that places me with your audience, but my perspective is that I look at my friends who are in their 20s and 30s, and they're not married. They're really kind of holding out. We've convinced a lot of women, oh my God, I don't want to bring a child into this society, in this world. It's so horrible and so violent.
We're stuck.
I don't think we have to be. And
we can't be like, I was reading yesterday, a great article in the New York Times about being stuck. And it was like, people are holding on to their cars longer than ever because new cars are so expensive and the interest rates are so high. I remember when car loans were basically free. Yeah. It's like, I'm driving around a 2015 Accord, so I feel that. It's like the people aren't moving.
17. I'm right there with you.
People are great car, but still, people starting to do funny things in the cold weather. The car, the people are staying in their houses because they can't sell, they can't buy. Where there's not enough, even though the unemployment rate is low, there's not like really a lot of availability. There's not a lot of hiring going on. It's very anemic, and that's, I think, really kind of behind part of the reason the Democrats didn't get a re-up, right? I mean, there were a lot of other reasons too.
Well, you make a key point about unemployment being low. But I tell you, this is where Trump was brilliant in the first 4 years. I don't think people gave him credit. And I saw it firsthand when I went to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And they've got a mixed record when it comes to immigration and everything. I don't think they're big Trump fans. But Trump told all of the CEO class, the people who are investing, the people who are expanding, building businesses, and some of the people like me who don't have a lot of money at their fingertips, you can build, you can grow. We're not going to be nitpicking you and regulating you nonstop. Like, you make a plan, you've got a 5-year plan, you got a 10-year plan, you invest, I don't know, $10 million, $100 million in a new facility. You got to have confidence that you're going to make that money back. And Trump sent the signal that he was not going to allow the federal bureaucracy and the regulators to hassle these people where they would lose their investment. Biden, on the other hand, oh no, they were hyper aggressive the last 4 years. And I think Trump will come back and say, hopefully it'll be more than just 4 years this time. We're going to let you grow. We're going to let you use your money to grow. And that traditionally, historically, has brought more jobs. I think that was the success of Trump. Look, we hadn't had COVID and all the horrible riots, which I still think were orchestrated and contrived. I mean, here in Richmond, they burned half the city for 100 nights and no one did anything about it.
Wow.
That did not happen on its own. I don't think that was an organic situation. If those two things had not occurred in 2020, if you rewind before COVID, I think people, even though he was hated by the same people who hate him today, the average person said, I kind of like this situation. I wish he wouldn't tweet as much. I heard that a million times, but they liked the economy. And then COVID and the overreaction to COVID, which is a whole nother debate, right? We could do 3 hours on that. But.
Oh yeah. Well, speaking of you're in Richmond, I'm in Fairfax County myself. I'm in Northern Virginia. Awesome. So I used to live in DC proper, and then, as much as people said that DC had gentrified by the time I moved there, which it did. But just as I was leaving, it's also becoming de-gentrified, I guess. It's the de-evolution of downtown DC and like the Logan Circle area. And so I kind of watched it de-transform and under the Biden era when all those riots were happening. So, we bought a place here in Fairfax County and I became a suburban soccer mom. And I would say that there was a big shift of women like me who are the non-traditional Trump, voters. Mm-hmm. We were the ones that kind of really pushed him over county to county. He saw a huge surge there, as well as young, I would say the manosphere men, which are also non-traditional Trump voters, supported him this time around. And people like me were more concerned about the price of eggs and the price of our gas and because
and safety,
we're moms,
right?
And our safety. Well, it didn't feel great being in DC, worrying that, muggings are up in Northwest.
I lived in Shaw, and right over from you. I lived in Shaw. I saw the era where the bars on the windows that had been there since the riots of '69 came down. Yep. And everybody invested money. That's how I wound up there. I mean, when I first moved in, I think I was the only white guy in Shaw, right next to Howard University. I was it was like spotting a white deer when I would go jog through the neighborhood. Who is this? Why is he here? And then by the time I left DC, like you say, the bars went back up on the windows. Mm-hmm. But I had Trump on my show when he was competing for the primary here in Virginia. So what's that, back in March or early March of 2024? Right. And I don't know if you all have interviewed Trump, but it makes you nervous if you ask him a question that you think he's going to get ticked by. Like, I don't need to get trashed by Trump with my audience. But I asked him, I said, look, women seem to hate you. Why? I mean, what are you going to do to win women back? Mm-hmm. And I heard that voice change and I thought, oh my God, now I've done it. and he gave me kind of not a blow off answer, but not a real answer, and pivoted, which was smart. But then about a minute later, he came back and said, hey, John Reid, you asked this question about women, and I want to tell you something. Women like me because I'm going to help keep them safe, and no one else is going to do it. And it took him a second to find that answer, but that was true because people were tired of other men and women, mostly Democrats, who said, let's give everybody a second chance to live a good life, or a second chance to mug and kill somebody. Right. And that turned into a big issue in the campaign, and it was legitimate. That wasn't fabricated. It wasn't like, if you go back to the 80s where one incident turns into a big issue, but it really doesn't reflect the situation of the general population. And here in Richmond, we're dealing with the same thing. I moved to the suburbs, even though my partner really wanted to be, having a fun time in the city. I said, hell no, the taxes are going up and the crime in the city.
Cost of living. Yeah. Cost of living has just stifled everybody downtown. So during COVID, I saw a mass outflux from downtown DC. Yeah. And of course, by then, we had already moved out here to Fairfax County, but by then people were kind of stuck, and then prices went through the roof and rates went through the roof, and nobody's moving. People want to, as you said, your partner wants to, but nobody's doing it because nobody can afford it. But can I bring you on this side of the Potomac River and talk a little more Virginia politics for the next few minutes that we have you? People were not galvanized prior to the Youngkin campaign. I would say nobody really paid attention to Virginia. No disrespect to Virginia. I'm a native Californian. People paid attention to who's the California governor because, it's the richest state in the union. People paid attention. But now suddenly with the Youngkin campaign, this last cycle in 21, people started paying attention to who's the governor of what state. And suddenly Youngkin, maybe it's because he's, 8 feet tall or something, people started looking. But now people are starting to pay attention to this state. And we have elections coming up in November. And first of all, can you explain why does this Commonwealth have a non-back-to-back gubernatorial rule? That why can't you be governor for 2 terms back-to-back?
Yeah, you can only serve one term, 1 4-year term, which throws everybody. I mean, the old mindset, and I still would like to think this is true, is that you campaign, you get elected. Of course, you've got a party affiliation, but then as a leader, you stop calculating every decision based on the next election. You're not saying, all right, if I do this, then I buy these votes for the next 4 years, and then I can be governor for 12. Your goal is to come in and do the best job you can in the 4 years you've got, and you don't get a redo, even though like Terry McAuliffe just tried and Youngkin beat him. And if you do get a redo, it's a 4-year break. So you've got to really be focused on the job and do a good job without the political calculations. Now, does that work in practical life, in real life? We could probably argue that. I like the fact that people aren't lying. But.
No, I think you're right. I didn't know because I've only been in this state since 2017. So
welcome.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you. Now it's going on 8 years before I knew it.
In another 30, they'll give you your Virginia passport and they'll act like.
I guess so. Well, if things keep fractioning, it might go back to North and South. Who knows? But with Virginia during that time or leading up to Youngkin's win, there was a lot of controversy about, stuff, Mason-Dixon politics, right? Mason-Dixon line politics. And you're down there in Richmond. We saw during the BLM riots, people tearing down, statues that are, racist. Is that still a thing down in Richmond? All these name changes, we saw Trump, now renaming Mount McKinley because it's, it went to Denali a few years ago, I think under Obama, and now it's Mount McKinley again. Are we seeing a resurgence of any of that down in the state's capital in Richmond?
Well, people still care about it. I'm a native Virginian. I was raised to have an appreciation for a lot of different perspectives. My partner is African American, so I'm really not interested in refighting the Civil War. But I will tell you, the way that went down was wrong because it was a mob violence type action instead of a vote. I'm not going to vote to take down one of our major tourist attractions in Virginia that does tell the story, and it is an important story of the Civil War in America. And to your point, I'm really worried we're very close to that again. And I think we should study, how did the best people in this country wind up killing each other, and the richest people in the country put themselves in a situation where they could lose everything they owned and everything they inherited and worked for and their lives. How did that happen in 1861? And what can we do to avoid having it happen now? And I think those statues that were torn down help tell the stories of those people and their time. But if we were going to take them down, at least we should have had a civilized vote and a process. I would have made my argument to keep them up, both from a money standpoint. It's not white or black, it's green. We want to make money off of it. But I also would have advocated that we tell the story. And the bad thing is we had a Democrat mayor who may be running for lieutenant governor this year, and I'm berserk about that. He just let the mob have their way, and then he broke the law and removed the statues. His own lawyer said, you're breaking the law. He didn't give a damn about it. And I resent that. I don't like that. And I will tell you, for the people who say, I don't care about Civil War statues, that's cool. That's fine. But be careful, because as Trump warned, the mob is coming for other people. And so maybe you don't like Thomas Jefferson. Maybe you don't like George Washington when those statues come down. But your father or your grandfather who fought in Vietnam, they're going to be the next targets. Because it's very easy to take any conflict and recalibrate who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. And the left is really good at that. So I'd warn us all, whether you agree with me or not, that we need to take a step back from this type of emotional manipulation and violence. And let's have a rational, objective, and we can reevaluate the data in front of us and the stories in front of us. But I just don't think that was done the right way.
Right.
John, I agree with you about that. I mean, personally, I think the statues, I was for the statues coming down, but not the way that they did. I thought
it's a slippery slope.
I mean, also I was what changed it for me was that I thought they were from the Civil War, but they weren't. They went up later, and that for me changed a lot. But that's a whole different discussion. But let me ask. Let's get back.
I think
to
they're
Trump.
not authentic enough.
But
well, they happened at the same time. Like we just finished the World War II memorial, and so especially for a devastated society. I know you don't want to spend a lot of time.
That's a good point, though.
For a devastated society.
That's a fair point about the World War II memorial. Although that's ridiculous that it took so long. Right. I don't think the Great War memorials took that long. I think after 1918 they went up pretty quickly. What I was going to say is that's just because America can't build anything anymore. Apparently, it just takes forever. What was? So
zoning.
Donald
Ted,
Trump
let me just say,
is a new
zoning
president,
and
right?
permits.
But every president has, and every party, when they're in power, they have the ability to, to message and reach out across the aisle to the other side and sort of say, like, we know you guys lost, but we're going to be your president too, and and we're all Americans together. That hasn't seemed to. So far, we haven't seen much of that. The inauguration did not have any of the traditional reach across the aisle. Democrats are completely freaked out. They think it's the end of the world. They're like either not watching the news at all because they're like la 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 la. I don't want to hear this. I don't know. I mean, if I were the president of the United States, I'm sure half the country would be freaked out. Maybe 2/3 of the country, but maybe it might be freaked out. But I would worry about that. I would be like, I don't think it's good for half the country to be freaked out. Do you think that it's possible? I mean, temperamentally, that's not Trump's way, right? But no compromise, go hard. It's rhetorically. Is there some bone that he can throw across to maybe Democrats or maybe to progressive leftists like Bernie bros, who have actually more in common with Trump than like the corporate Democrats do? Something that he can do like a Republican solution on healthcare, or I mean, I think the real left will like an end to the Ukraine war, or like pressuring Israel to like ramp it down in Gaza or something. I mean, right now it just seems like there's no bones being thrown.
Let me think about the policy issue, and where he could influence things. I do think that there's a breakthrough that's happening in a lot of these conflicts that have been clogged up for over a year, whether it's Israel and Hamas, with the release of these hostages. I mean, I think if we're being honest, you don't even have to be a partisan to say nothing was happening until Trump won and said,
"That's true.
You got to get your act together, or I'm going to blow you off the face of the earth," which is not a nice thing to say, but it works. It's like jacking your kid up and saying, "Do you hear me? Do I have your attention now?" It worked. Right. And then Ukraine, his outreach to Putin, which was kind of a carrot and stick tweet or whatever it is, truth, social truth. I thought that was interesting. So he may wind up breaking through in ways that everybody has to step back and go, damn, the art of the deal guy, it wasn't really ghost written. He kind of knows what he's doing.
And then he might not get credit if he does it.
He might not.
I mean, he didn't really get credit for the negotiating with the Taliban. I always gave him mad props for that.
Yeah. But let me tell you something. And you don't have to take my word for this. Go back on YouTube and watch Trump's first inaugural speech. Okay. Now, I worked for Ronald Reagan. I was his last staff assistant intern. I helped draft the remarks that he gave around. I love the Ronald Reagan style, uplifting, dignified. He could throw a punch if he needed to, but that wasn't what he led.
And he had good humor.
Oh, yeah. The ability to lace that, won people over to his side. So I kind of like that style. Trump's first speech was very Reagan-esque, and people have forgotten it. I think he showed up that day hoping that normal tradition would occur. Hey, it was a rough campaign. Of course you hate the opposition. Of course you do. But now we can unite. There's some really great quotations in it. If you go back and read it or watch the speech, everybody didn't hear it. They forgot about it. Why? Because Antifa was in the streets setting things on fire that day. And I was in D.C. I was like, damn, I've been to all these inaugurations. There's always a protest. I had never seen anything like it. So
I was on the street covering those protests. I saw them firsthand. I was running away
real, and it was
from
bad.
Like smoke bombs and pepper spray bombs,
right,
and window smashing. My then colleague, Larry King, I had no idea he had just left the studio. His limo got set on fire. They attacked Larry King, of all people. Like, Larry freaking King. Are you kidding? He's an American gem. And they attacked poor old Larry. I was somewhere else, but nearby. I didn't, or else I would have helped Larry. But to your point, I'd never seen an inauguration go down like that on the streets. It was bad.
So what you got on Monday was, I think, a recalibration of the new reality. And it's crazy that the moment that Trump 8 years ago was trying to be so, I don't know that I want to say magnanimous, but at least uplifting, that was the reaction from the street, the Democrat street. And then I've been waiting for all hell to break loose, other than just the normal critics. And people have been kind of quiet. Now, I don't want to jinx it by saying that, but I'm very thankful that perhaps maybe the tough guy act has made some people say, all right, we do have to deal with this guy in a more civilized fashion because he's ticked off now and we don't want to taunt that. Maybe.
Yeah, that's not my take. My take is,
I don't think so.
Because I'm all my friends voted for, Kamala Harris. All my, Democratic friends, they really have given up on the American people. They think
that's awful.
It's not good. I've argued against this, as a New Yorker who grew up in flyover country. I grew up in Ohio. I'm like, they're like, well, basically we're done with them. They vote, they're stupid, they're mean, they're racist. They voted for Donald Trump. So we'll stay away. We'll stay here in the coasts. We'll eat our better food and listen to our NPR and just not deal with them. That's literally what it is. It's literally like you mentioned the build up to the Civil War, and there were obviously a myriad of factors that led to that. But I think it's kind of like this to me feels like, and I've been through this, like the last few years of a bad marriage, where basically it's like, yes, you're not even yelling at each other anymore. It's like you just have so much contempt for each other that you don't even talk. You don't even look at each other. You're like, you don't engage. I mean, to me, it's scary when people give up and they stop yelling at each other. That's when you got to look out. And the Democrats they're not yelling anymore. They're not calling Trump people names anymore. They're just done.
There's a difference,
and
though,
that's scary.
There's a difference, guys, I would say, between the voters and the DNC, right?
Oh, all the difference in the world.
The DNC has not taken a look in the mirror, and all their acolytes like Rachel Maddow and all these, the Joy Reids of the world, of the media world, they're still carrying water for the failures of the party, whether it was the candidate or the platforms or whatever
they don't think they failed.
They don't think they failed, but the voters, and I would agree, Ted, and all my friends back home in California, they just all kind of like, oh, Kamala, okay, I guess we have to vote for her then. And then when she lost, they were all kind of like, meh, like it just went out of their sails. They weren't devastated. They were just kind of like,
yeah, why wouldn't they?
Well, she lost.
You'd be devastated if you really felt like, like not getting this person is like a big loss for the country. I mean, I think about
like 2016.
There was a documentary about Mitt Romney on Netflix, and it came out of my takeaway was like, well, he's a nice man.
It was actually kind of flattering to him. Yeah, I know.
It was very flattering and positive, and I liked Mitt, and I liked it, and it's worth watching. But I did not come out of it thinking, America really. We lost out by not having President Romney. It's just, I think.
Right. I liked him more than I did.
In an earlier generation, like I would say personally, as a left-leaning person, I feel like it was kind of a tragedy that we didn't ever get a President Al Gore, because he cared about the environment, and we needed a president who cared about the environment. We never got that. I feel like, an earlier generation, they were really sad that Adlai Stevenson never got to be president, even though they didn't hate Eisenhower. It was just like, Adlai Stevenson was a well-regarded intellectual, and there were certain people who were like, it's too bad we never got to have him. I don't think that anybody feels that, America has suffered by not getting President Harris, except for the symbolic resonance of first woman president. That's it. That's all they wanted. It wasn't about her. It wasn't like, oh my God, Harris would have really been able to solve this or that. No, it was just about the first woman president thing.
And winning.
And
just winning.
Keeping Trump out.
Right. But see, here's the thing. And this is why, if Trump makes me mad right now, I'm delighted. But, politics, give us another week. If Trump makes me mad, I don't have any room, because this guy's got to deliver. I do think he's grounded in policies and beliefs that will deliver for the American public and will give us a robust economy. And then my hope is that a lot of people will wake up and say, all right, maybe we've miscalculated here. And some of the things that Republicans and Trump have been talking about are worth re-examining and doubling and tripling down on. If he can give us another 4 years where we extricate ourselves from international conflict, we don't get into any new conflicts, and the economy buoys back up with an expansion, and we don't make any stupid mistakes. There's always you never know what's coming around the corner, like a COVID situation.
Sure.
I think that this could be, I mean, he says the new golden age of America, and that's what I'm all in on that. I need a golden age.
Who's against it? No one's against it.
I'm looking at my retirement account thinking I would really like to have a golden age. So
I would like to see that. You got time for one last question, John?
Yeah.
So the reason we're talking already about his first 100 days, and I've already brought up the Virginia elections we're already at the end of January. Yeah. First of all, like, hello, the new year just happened, and now we're already at the end of January. We're going to barrel through the first 100 days, barrel through the first year of a Trump admin 2.0. The reason it's important is because before you know it, people like Congress is going to be jockeying for their midterm elections.
Right. That's right.
So Trump needs to get everything done. Right. Everything done now, the first 100 days. So we know 100%. We hear immigration. We've heard him talk about winding down.
Look at Joe Biden. War. The only things he got done were during his first 6 months.
Right. So like, what do you think he's going to barrel through and just bull in China shop in the next, it's been 5 days officially?
95 days.
95 days. We have 95 days left. What gets done in a real lawful manner where a bill actually comes to his desk?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think some of the social issues that have been so polarizing. I mean, look, I'm a gay guy. I know that upsets some people, and I'm a Republican.
What?
In my whole life. Yeah. So people freak out about that, but I have been very distressed. I mean, I was for gay marriage. I was for gays in the military. My whole argument was normalcy, like gay men and women are normal people who can show up at work, do a good job, behave.
You go to the grocery store and everything like the rest of us.
All normalcy.
Wow.
My distress is that we've lost that normalcy argument. And I think Trump, who has been pro-gay, I mean, before the Democrats even got on board with it in his business.
But he has been anti-trans in some respects.
Oh, yeah. And I think the trans thing is a place that's turning into a dividing line, which I'm actually, I hate to say it, I'm okay with that because I think we have indulged something that the American people are not on board with.
That's it.
And he's making some changes that I think still don't harm people or they're not abusive to people, unlike what that minister said at the cathedral. I mean, I was 10, 12 rows behind Trump and I was thinking, what are you talking about, lady? I'm sitting right behind the guy and I'm thrilled he's there.
Can I point out that anytime Joe Biden went to church and, he says he's a devout Catholic. I don't know how many times he went to church in the past 4 years, but we never heard any bishop or any clergy point the finger and kind of wag the finger at him for whatever else, for his son's misdeeds, or any of his own misdeeds, alleged misdeeds coming from, the likes of Tara Reid, or like allowing for wars to continue in Gaza. Well, he never got a finger wagged at, but here's Trump. Like that to me was very distasteful of clergy.
Biden was smart enough not to go to the churches where he would have got. And this is one of the sad things. The National Cathedral is a national treasure. And when I was in Washington, I went to a lot of events there and I went to services there frequently. That was the bad thing was I felt like it was such an opportunity to unite people that was missed because of a political agenda.
Yeah.
And I regret that happened. But I think the social issues, if he can carefully adjust things where we're not on the fringe anymore. I do think it was right to get rid of people in the military I shouldn't say get rid of, dismiss people from the military who seem to be distracted by other issues, social issues, and let's just focus on being a defense system and one that will prevent aggression. I think that was responsible. I think a lot of Americans who have been disillusioned will say, all right, again, the normalcy thing, we're returning to a normalcy. And let's be honest, because I've lived around the world, normalcy in America is pretty damn good. And we should get back to that.
Do you think there's any chance that Republicans will ever do something about healthcare? We saw what happened after the shooting of Brian Thompson allegedly by Luigi Mangione. The American people are furious. It's bipartisan. But Democrats and Republicans both get sick. They both have terrible experiences with their insurers. They all pay these high medical bills. is there some, Donald Trump promised to repeal and replace Obamacare with something better. The system's only gotten worse. They never came up with anything. Are we going to see anything like that in this term?
I think it would be responsible to convene people to talk through where we are and what we adjust to. I would make the argument, I don't know how you all feel. I'm in a full-time job. I feel like I'm paying a fortune for my health care. Mm-hmm. And I guess if I have a heart attack today or I, get hit by a car in the parking lot, I think I'll get treated. But sure. my health care today versus 25, 30 years ago when I started working, I don't even go to the doctor anymore. It's like I can't get in. So right. I think the average person who's working their butt off to try to make it in America.
Yeah, we're not even talking about poor people here.
Yeah.
Right?
People are dissatisfied. And so where we were when we first entered into this debate through Obamacare to today, I think we got to reevaluate that. They're smart, thoughtful people who are committed to, I think, free market responses and solutions that could offer some solutions. I think we'll bankrupt ourselves if technically, should we all acknowledge we're bankrupt? I think we are bankrupt, and
we are bankrupt, but we have a great line of credit.
Yeah. So do I, and I put like 30 grand on my credit card the last couple of months with my next adventure, and it's killing me already. So you have to be smart enough if you're going to do that kind of thing that it's limited, and social welfare programs that make everyone feel good, but then, quite frankly, don't deliver good results and do have that bankrupting result, that's just got to be addressed. So maybe that's day 101 that he starts to address that.
Yeah, because before you know it, no one's going to be paying attention to,
it would be a game
Trump
changer
anymore. Yeah. Their Capitol Hill is going to shift attention to them and their campaigns, and they're going to punt on whatever
and the odds
priorities are.
Usually in the midterm elections, the party out of power picks up seats. So,
yeah,
I don't think that's going to happen this time.
If he delivers, it might not. If he delivers,
it doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be, a red trickle, even like we saw last time. The supposed red wave became a red trickle, but it's still, I think they're going to retain power this time. So I think
we're divided.
Trump is going to,
and I think Donald Trump is Donald Trump. He's not going to change. Mm-hmm. But those of us who are in the orbit, I think we have an obligation to try to be reasonable and thoughtful and engage in some outreach to people who have normally not liked us. Mm-hmm. People who've written off Republicans. That's what I've been telling people is that's one reason that I'm looking at entering into the political fray, because I hear a lot of people who are mad. I'm mad too, but you got to try to get the next door neighbor who you haven't spoken to in 6 or 7 years. You got to get them to say, hey, this person's actually thoughtful. They do hear what our concerns are, and they do want to try to address them. That's the first step towards healing the country. And I think there are people out there who want to do that. We got to get them on stage. We got to get them into the legislature and into elected office. And Glenn Youngkin is somebody who he's a very religious guy. I sometimes joke on my own show, and he comes on pretty frequently. I'm like, do you wear a "What Would Jesus Do" bracelet? And I think he does. And I've joked with him, like, I want to see Jesus flip over a couple of tables and then go back to being nice. But he's got a nice demeanor, and I do think he's built up a lot of trust, not with the people who hate him because he's a Republican, but with just the general population. I think that's something that we might want to look at as Republicans going forward. We'll still be strong, but try to pull people over. That's you got to do that to win politically.
Yeah, that's a really nice message. We'll leave that there because I like ending on a happy note, because
Me too.
when you hear Republicans not sounding, like a soundbite that Joy Reid would put on her show, that's a good thing, I think.
Good.
So John Reid, if and when you do make this announcement that and you tell people, will you be sure to come back and let us know too and talk about it?
Well, book me for next week because I lose my job on Monday morning. So I guess I've Yeah, I mean, I'm really talking about healthcare. I'm not going to have healthcare by Monday afternoon.
Oh boy!
So I better not get hit by a car.
Well, when the announcement is made official,
watch both ways before you cross those very icy streets.
Yes. Oh God!
Paul, for having me. I enjoyed talking to you. I really appreciate it.
It's a real pleasure. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you. We hope to have you back very soon.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thanks, John. All right, let's book him next week.
Yeah, well, next week. Let's see what the update looks like. We don't there's a lot of things if he's looking to wade into the political waters, people don't know how much goes on behind the scenes, right? Like when you run for office and there's like paperwork, you can get in trouble for literally announcing and then not putting in this document or that document, or you know what I mean, Ted? Like, so we don't want to just make the pronouncements.
I know it really shouldn't be this complicated, but it is.
It shouldn't. If I want to run for class president, I should just say it. I should just be able to say it. But that's not the world we live in. There's a lot of legal loopholes, so we're not going to make that announcement at this moment. But after it's official, then I enjoyed hearing from John, so we'll have him back. That was John Reid. He is a former comms director for Senator George Allen, editorial comms chief at the U.S. Chamber, or former editorial comms chief at the Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Then he later served as the chief of communications for Iraq, Afghanistan Veterans of America, where he advocated for veterans' mental health funding, which I applaud because there needs to be more of that. Because, I'm big on the mental health stuff, Ted. So thank you to John. All right.
I try to avoid having as much mental health as possible. I'm just kidding.
All right.
Am I?
With that, guys. Remember we said the do's and don'ts. Don't call them nut jobs. Don't call them
Looney Tunes, wackadoodles.
Yeah, don't the do's and don'ts of the mental health industry. Don't do that.
Uh-huh.
Didn't you take the course with me, Ted?
I think I know that course. I did not take it with you.
We did it on the show. We had to.
Oh, that's right.
We were forced to cover it on the show.
Oh my God! Now I'm having a repressed memory is returning.
Yeah, you can't say those things. Don't say no fatties, right? You can't say that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. That's not acceptable.
Orientals.
I think producer, don't call us Orientals. We're not rugs. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Producer Robbie's laughing.
Yeah, it's never your fault either. I mean,
it's true.
You can never say anything negative. I mean, you can smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day. It's not your fault that your lungs are completely shot. I mean, it's never your fault.
That's right. Keep drinking that Mountain Dew or
it's big tobacco. It's big tobacco.
What is this case?
No, tell you.
All right.
Back home, do you know what they call Mountain Dew? Weasel piss. It's called weasel piss. Kid you not.
I have to admit, I loved Mountain Dew as a kid.
Ew, really?
Mountain Dew's big.
It's great when it's hot.
I've never liked it. No, not my jam.
What's your favorite soda? Of the mainstream corporate, both of you, mainstream corporate sodas.
Oh, it's a Coke.
Like, don't bring up like Dr. Brown's or something fancy.
No.
No,
it's a Coke. Well, true story. When I first moved here to Montana, went to this little diner called Sykes, and this waitress walked up and she said, "Would you like a pop?" And I looked at her and said, "Ma'am, I apologize for offending you. I don't know why you want to hit me."
I'm from the Pop Belt. Ohio is in the Pop Belt.
Well, back home it's all
Here
a Coke.
It's a soda.
Back home it's soda. Everyone's a Coke. It's just, hey, what kind of Coke do you want? Oh, I'll take a Mountain Dew. It's all a Coke.
What? That's crazy. No, okay, my favorite. You guys probably don't know it. I don't know if it's a national thing, but in California, it's a big soda. Cactus Cooler.
What
the hell is that?
Never heard of it.
Oh, so it's not a national thing because I can't find it out here in Virginia or DC. So maybe it's not a national soda.
Nope.
But
next time you go on a road trip,
it's orange pineapple.
Ted, when you were there in the hinterlands of Ohio, did y'all have RC Coca-Cola?
Oh, we sure did.
I think RC is everywhere.
RC
but because
and
I
Moon
can't
Pies.
get Cactus. I can't get Cactus Cooler. I drink.
And we had the
every now
OG Barks. We had the OG Barks root beer before it became corporatized.
Yeah, that's my son's drug of choice. Is
Barks root beer.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really.
So if you go to like
if
you go to like a BK and there's all those corporate
yes.
Coke, which soda would you get? If you don't say you'd get water. What would you get? What would you choose?
No, I literally have only been to BK one time in the past.
Okay, but at gunpoint,
so I don't know what's there
for the ISIS video. Which
I don't know what's there. I don't know what sodas. Are they a Pepsi company or are they a Coca-Cola company?
I think they're Coke.
No, I think they're Pepsi because I was just there.
No, I had a Coke at McDonald's.
2 months ago.
Oh, BK might be Pepsi. BK might be Pepsi.
BK.
You might be right about that.
I don't know. I know they had some sort of lemonade, and that's what I chose.
We don't have one here. We don't have a Burger King here. So
what?
Hey, we just got our first Taco Bell. So
do you have a Wendy's?
We do have a Wendy's.
And here's a question: do you have a Waffle House?
No, Waffle House is a Southern thing.
Right, but it's like there's been like some bleed like into like Pennsylvania and like Southern Jersey.
That's sacrilege.
I know.
Yeah, Waffle House should never be north of the Mason-Dixon line. I'm willing to go to war right the hell now.
I agree with that.
That's a Southern thing? Okay.
Oh, yeah, no, by law. It used to be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been to Cracker Barrel once, and I've been to one Waffle House ever.
I've only been to Cracker Barrel once.
I don't know.
And I was kind of like, oh, this. I see why people like this.
I love it.
Although it's too much.
It's like, a lot of food at Cracker Barrel.
It's too much. Yeah, I got an omelet, and it was like, and I love omelets, but it was like.
See, our closest, because Cracker Barrel, they're always built on the interstate. And our closest Cracker Barrel is 120 miles away. So we go to Missoula.
So 20 minutes.
Maybe twice. Oh yeah. So, but once or twice a year, we would go down there just to go to the bookstore because we didn't have a bookstore here. But now we do. We have a Barnes & Noble. We're growing up in the world. So, I'm going to try and actually get you out here for your books.
And I'm going to do that.
That'd be really cool. And
I
would
love that.
to go too because I want to see Montana. That's one state I've not been to and I'd like to see. And the last great bit of American wilderness before it gets all turned into condos. So
you damn Californians, you just stay out. Oh, no. You stay out. I mean, do not turn Montana into a
with
park
climate change anyway. It's going to be with all the beachfront property that's going to be in Montana.
That's true.
Everyone's moving there.
There actually is a bill in the Montana legislature to feed cows more oats to help them fart more to kind of warm up the winters here.
Well,
it's all a joke, of course.
If Robbie and his family can survive the super volcano because there's buzz that it's ready to blow.
There's one in Montana?
Yellowstone.
Oh, super volcano.
Yeah, because one of the things.
Super volcano ready to go any day now is what I heard.
Here in the Flathead Valley, we've actually had several earthquakes over the last year.
That's ominous.
Yeah, interesting because typically it doesn't happen, and there's a big concern because they're starting to build more subdivisions south of us, towards the Indian reservation. Well, it's all a floodplain before they dammed up the Flathead River. So now what the concern is, if there is a big earthquake, what will happen? Because it's just it's not bedrock; it's just mud. So they're worried, that these buildings that they're building just fall down. So.
Well, that could happen. And with
that, I'm going to get rid of Robbie and get rid of us.
Today.
Get out of here, Robbie. Thank you. All right, so that's going to do it for Manila and Ted's excellent adventure.
And for the week, we'll see you on January 27th.
Can you believe it, Ted? It's already the end of the friggin'. I thought we were just saying Happy New Year to the audience, and now it's like, whoa, we're at the end of the month. Whoa.
That's true.
Keep in line with the Bill and Ted thing. Whoa.
Dude.
Excellent, dude. All right, guys, remember to hit that like button and the follow or the subscribe.
We appreciate you guys who've done it already. Thank you for doing that.
Nerd, thank you for putting out that
gift
sub. That Ted, how did you win that? What?
I don't know what I did to deserve it.
Now, we need to make you give that back to an audience member? You can't win a free subscription.
Why not?
No.
I can gift it. Can I? You're saying I should re-gift?
Yeah. Can you ungift it? I don't know how this works.
I don't know how it works either. We'll look into it. I don't know. I don't want to feel like I'm rejecting it.
No, Nerd was giving the free gift sub to a random audience member. He wanted.
Well, I ended up getting it.
Yes, you can't even watch the show because you're doing the show.
That's a good point. It's kind of like I'm the worst possible person for this gift.
So, yeah, I don't know how we re-gift it, but
I wonder if Clovis could use it.
Figure that
Although
out.
he's not interested. He could watch it anytime he wants.
Yeah,
he's like sleeping.
He's watching it live.
Shocking.
He can watch it live in person. So in Katzen. So
that's right.
So that's going to do it for us. We'll be back on Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern. We got some cool new guests next week, Ted. I think I got to lock a couple people down. We're going to talk Africa next week.
All right. When the rains fall in Africa. All right.
They don't make good music anymore. Adios, amigos.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Manila. Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend, all. You too. Bye, Ted.